Hello, hello. Welcome back to the Fertility Confidence Podcast. Thank you so much for hitting play today. I missed you guys last week. April has been a very interesting month, a very humbling month. One of those months I actually was putting this into our TTC diaries email for this week around how when you're so sick, I was so sick 2 weeks ago, you guys. And I can't even remember the last time in my life I was like bedridden for 6 days. And it was such a moment when, you come out of that and you're just like, oh my God, I value my health so much. Like, I just, every day I'm like, I'm still not 100% better, but every day just a little bit better. And a little bit like reminding myself, like, it's so important to take care of yourself and how we just need to like cherish our health. Having one of those like on my knees moments of what would I do if I literally couldn't do anything? So we skipped a podcast last week because my brain was just not up to snuff. But we're back and we have a fun interview today with two amazing women that I really enjoyed sitting down and chatting to about endometriosis and about advocacy in the fertility space and about an amazing opportunity through a company called Fertility Out Loud to get support and get mentorship and help with advocating for yourself. So I got to chat with April Christina and Connie Stark. April Christina is a New York City-based wellness and beauty blogger, and she was diagnosed with endometriosis in December of 2010 and is now an amazing advocate for how to support your body through endometriosis as well as through her own fertility journey, which she is still on. And Connie Stark, who is a certified reproductive medicine infertility nurse and fertility coach with Fertility Out Loud. And she has spent decades educating, supporting, and helping thousands of aspiring parents navigate their journeys to parenthood and beyond. And so it was wonderful to kind of get both sides of a fertility journey and of specifically a journey including endometriosis, which if you've listened to any of our past endo episodes, you know that it's it's a journey, right? Like getting diagnosed and figuring out where to go from here. It's a whole complex layer to a TTC journey. And so getting to hear April's insights into what that was like for her, what getting diagnosed was like for her, and then now what does that mean for her fertility journey, and then having Connie being able to come in and sort of share her insights as the nurse, as the medical professional, who also is a fertility coach with Fertility Out Loud, which is an amazing free resource that you can use to have coaching from a healthcare coach or other fertility coach similar to Connie, that I think is just such an amazing, amazing opportunity for the infertility community. So without further ado, I hope you enjoy, even if you're someone that's like, endo doesn't really relate to me. I think there's still a lot of really great little nuggets on how to actually advocate for yourself along the fertility journey and what does that mean, and great insights and tips from both April and Connie on how to continue through if you're feeling stuck or if you're unsure of where to go from here on your fertility journey. Before we get into our amazing conversation, I just want to say a very quick thank you to our podcast sponsor, Needed. We all know how incredibly challenging it is to navigate all the different supplement options out there and to find something that is high quality, that's going to get the job done. And so when Needed reached out to me for the podcast partnership, I was like, absolutely no brainer. I love the quality. I love their testing. I love their mission in their company, and they make it a really easy one-stop shop for a wide variety of fertility supplements. We personally really love their powdered prenatal inside Fertility Confidence method. For those of you who don't love swallowing pills or feel like they're just taking supplements all day long, it's such a great high quality option. It's so easy to mix into your smoothie. And they have supplements for all stages of your journey for both you and your partner. So you can check them out over at thisisneeded.com and use the coupon code Dr. Kelsey for 20% off your first order. So thank you, Needed. Welcome to the Fertility Confidence Podcast, Connie and April.
Great to be here, Kelsey. I'm so
Amazing.
excited. Thank you so much for having us.
We were talking just off recording here beforehand that I unfortunately had to reschedule these two a bajillion times. So today felt like a big win. I woke up, my kids went to school, like there's no disasters happening. I was like, okay, finally, but
Ah,
we can get it in.
Yes.
sounds great.
Why don't we start with you guys just sharing a little bit about yourselves for our audience?
Sure. So I'll start. My name is April Christina. I am a health and wellness advocate that focuses on faith fertility and facing endometriosis after being diagnosed with stage 4 endometriosis, well, over roughly 11 years ago. And then I was diagnosed with infertility during the pandemic. So I love talking and raising awareness as much as possible around those two topics as they're near and dear to me.
And I'm Connie Stark, and I am a certified fertility nurse and fertility coach in the space for a lot older, I think, than what you two both are together for over 30 years of experience in the space, working with thousands of women that have been diagnosed with endometriosis, and of course other diagnoses when trying to conceive. And, being a fertility coach, a fertility nurse in the space for so long, I feel like it's not a job. And I just feel like it's a calling for me.
Mhm.
I've heard so many thousands of stories and quiet tears behind closed doors, and really standing in that gap of bridging everyone's emotionally, financially, physically, with information, to really just support them to advocate for themselves, and still love doing this.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you guys for sharing. Whenever we talk about a diagnosable condition on the podcast, I always love to give just a little bit of information for anyone who might not know what endometriosis is or if they should even consider it on their list of things to investigate. So,
Mhm.
Connie, would you maybe like to just share a little bit about how endo can impact the fertility journey? And then maybe, April, you can share your specific journey with endo.
Mhm.
Sure. Just clinically, for a diagnosis, right? So endometriosis is a diagnosis. So the definition would be when tissue similarly to the uterine lining grows outside the uterus. So it can lead to inflammation, pain, and for some, difficulty getting pregnant, right? It can affect the ovaries, fallopian tubes, and the surrounding organs, your bowel, your bladder, and can cause many different types of symptoms along with that. So, irregular cycles, painful periods, painful intercourse, right? And so, endometriosis, you can define it and it's a diagnosis, but it's so much more than that. And I'm sure April Christina will talk to this, but it's something that's just misdiagnosed or overlooked. And we normalize it. We normalize it because having pain with your periods, it's just all part of being a woman, right?
Mhm.
And I think today we're really here to say it's not, right? So advocate. And if it aligns to any of your listeners with any of these symptoms, um, it's really important to advocate and move forward. And hopefully we can share lots of tips in doing that.
Oh, amazing.
And like Connie said, she touched on pretty much my entire life dealing and living with endometriosis because I didn't know for a very long time. On average, it takes 8 to 10 years clinically to be diagnosed with endometriosis because of the complexity of the condition itself. I started my cycle when I was 9 years old. I was in the third grade, just really trying to navigate being a kid and then also just growing up as an adult reproductively. My cousins, my dad's an identical twin. So my uncle has three girls and they all started their cycle when they was young. So there goes the whole point of it being normal, right? Because all of my cousins started their cycle when they were young. So of course, I'm going to start my cycle when I'm young because my dad's an identical twin. but that obviously was not the case. I dealt with the heavy bleeding. I dealt with being nauseous. I dealt with having leg pain. I dealt with vomiting consistently, the excruciating pain of really just trying to navigate and just understand my cycle monthly. That for a very long time, I thought that that was the norm for me until I started experiencing breakthrough bleeding. I had a pediatric gynecologist very young that put me on oral contraceptives just to be able to help regulate my hormones, to regulate my menstrual cycle. And then in between that, I was still experiencing breakthrough bleeding. And then that's when my parents was like, okay, there has to be something else going on here. So from 9 years old all the way up until my late 20s is something that I was dealing with. And my parents were very hands on, very proactive. We went to as many physicians as possible just to really make sure that medically I was okay. So that whole time frame, my family was doing everything that they needed to do to make sure that I was fine. And then in my late 20s, I finally got a diagnosis of stage 4 endometriosis.
And what was the end kind of part of that diagnosis? How did that journey go for you? Who finally stepped into the arena and helped really get that diagnosis?
Definitely not a normal story, but I'm going to explain this story. So at the time when I was in healthcare, one of my patients was an OBGYN. And I was just so desperate at this point that I
Mm,
was like, I have another person I can talk to this about that's a GYN. Let me just explain to her what is happening, what is going on, just so that I can get another perspective. Because at this point, like I said, I was desperate. And two, I really just wanted to see what was going on. And more importantly, I wanted my symptoms and what I was feeling to be validated. So when
right.
I was explaining to her and I was telling her everything that was happening, I mean, we was helping each other at that point. She was like, it sounds like you have endometriosis. So I immediately took all of my medical records. I went to her. She told me that the definitive diagnosis is an exploratory laparoscopy. At that point, I never knew anything about endometriosis. I never heard of it before, but I trusted her because she was the first one that's not like we knew what was going on. And I just wanted to just get answers that bad. So I went to her practice. I got an exploratory laparoscopy, and that was how I found out I had endometriosis.
Amazing. Oh, there's so many stories like very similar to yours, right? I know early on in my career, before I was explicitly working in the fertility space, I still basically only did women's health in my practice.
Hmm.
And the amount of women that I would see in their mid to late 20s with excruciating period pain that were coming to me as a naturopathic doctor as their like last ditch effort because they had tried everything else, which I don't take offense to. I'm very used to it and it's fine. And they were told by their practitioners even like you probably have endo, birth control until you want to get pregnant. When you want to get pregnant, come back and we'll deal with it then. And now working in the fertility space, I'm still seeing that conversation happening and women now coming and being like, I did everything they said to come back and they would help me once I wanted to get pregnant. And now it's been years and still nobody is taking it seriously, or they're telling me I have to just try an IUI or try IVF and see if it will kind of like override the endo. And we're having to sort of help them advocate that, that's maybe not, maybe for some people, sure, absolutely, but not for everybody. And so if that's not working for you, there are other options and other avenues to explore.
And I think that it's amazing to have people in the space like you, Kelsey, and like Connie to be able to give a different perspective on what's happening. Even with conditions like endometriosis and infertility, it is a complex condition, both of them. And it also really entails having a multidisciplinary team that's
Mhm.
able to really get the bigger picture and understand what's going on because there's something that Connie may say or may give an insight to that you may be able to give a total different perspective. And then putting those two together with your physician would be able to really help the narrative, number one, and two, allow you to really figure out what's the next steps if you're deciding to move forward with family planning. So I think that it's amazing the work that you guys are doing for patients like me to be able to move forward and really find answers and get a resolve as much as possible.
Yeah.
Yeah. April, for women who are kind of sitting there going, I know I have endo, but nobody is willing to look or nobody is willing to help me. What's some words of wisdom in terms of advocating for themselves to get that proper diagnosis that you could share?
That's a great question. I think the main thing for me is one, to not give up. When you're a patient and you have a condition like the ones that I have, it can become very frustrating because you really don't know the answer and you're trying to find an answer and then you're still not receiving the answer, right? um, so I tell people to collect as much data as possible. Write down what that physician is saying. And if you're not happy with that, get a second opinion, get a third opinion, as much data and information that you can collect as possible to be able to have the best answer as far as what your plan of care would be moving forward is key. I think also the other thing for me is to bring a loved one, bring someone that is supportive with you, because when you're going on this journey, no matter what part of the journey that you're on, it can become very emotional. With trying to get a diagnosis, with trying to get an answer. And sometimes you become so flustered and you just have so much that's going on in your mind that it makes it very hard to decipher. When I finally had my endo specialist, which was my second surgery that I had to get done, my mom came with me and I had stuff written down. And when I found out I had to get another emergency surgery, even though I had stuff written down, I was so mind blown that I couldn't even read off what I had written what I had written down. And so my mom was like, "Okay, my daughter wants to know." And then she started going through that process because sometimes you really just need that extra help and encouragement to be able to continue the journey. So those would be the top two things that I would recommend and suggest for someone.
Yeah, I love that. Connie,
Yeah.
any kind of like additional insight on your end?
Yeah, you know what? It's April Christina's story is so great because it's something that Kelsey, you advocate for and teach, and I advocate for and teach. And she's living proof
Mm,
that the short answer is like, follow your gut. And if you have that feeling, that sense that something isn't quite right, or you don't like maybe the recommendation, trust what you have in your gut and advocate, right? And so that's April Christina's story. She had that real great support circle. A lot of women, a lot of people don't have that. So
mhm.
today it's like, listen to what it is and trust what you have and don't wait on it and don't wait to talk about it. Don't brush it off, right? And don't delay it because I think the earlier you seek that support, whether it be a specialist, whether it be an OB-GYN, whether it be anybody, a fertility coach like myself, having that peace of mind and putting the pieces of that puzzle together that April Christina talked about is really key. So as a fertility coach at Fertility Out Loud, I think the fertility coaching that we do, we really help women prepare themselves to ask those questions
Yeah.
if you don't have people around you to help guide that, right? So we better prepare you for that appointment with your doctor. So when you go to that appointment, you feel informed instead of intimidated, right? Support doesn't always mean treatment. It means validation, clarity, and building a community to help navigate that whole scenario. It's not just a diagnosis, it's so much more. It's your overall well being, right? It
Yeah.
affects every aspect of you every day. And you don't have to navigate it by yourself or in silence or thinking that it's normal.
Right. Yeah, I think that's so important because when we're bringing endometriosis into the infertility conversation, we're almost now going through two journeys,
Right.
right? And there definitely overlaps
Mhm.
in them,
Yeah.
but we're now dealing with two similar but separate things.
Yes.
And it just adds this whole other complexity to you trying to get pregnant now that we've opened this endo door. And that's what I see with my clients a lot, that struggle of, okay, now I finally have this answer, but there's still so much with endo that we don't fully
Right.
understand. And
Yeah.
especially in the infertility space, in terms of how endo impacts the immune system
Yes.
and inflammation. And I think, a decade or 2 decades ago, we kind of just thought like, oh, there's lesions in the uterus, that's the problem. But now we
Mhm.
know so much more that is the endo is actually
Right.
impacting from the fertility aspect, that it
Mhm.
adds this complexity to the infertility space, that we need more research. We need people to dig deeper, and we need practitioners to start thinking a little bit outside of the
Yeah.
box when it
Mhm.
comes to endo. And that's the part I feel
Yeah.
is the biggest struggle right now in
Mhm.
mainstream medicine, is there, if the typical support isn't working, then it's like, we don't really know what to do here. And we have to start outside of the box
Yeah.
thinking.
Yeah, I really liked what you said, Kelsey, about, endometriosis has layers, right? And so the first layer could be like layers of pain, causing
Mhm.
confusion
Mhm.
and, delaying answers because again, we've been taught that it's all part of being a
Pain
woman,
is
right?
normal, right?
Exactly. And all of that together really, I think, it really enhances this emotional burnout.
Yeah.
So it feels like your body's betraying you. You spent years pushing through this pain as normal. And now you've got this other layer when trying to conceive. And it's almost like all of a sudden you're grieving again. You're grieving again. Like, what do you mean? What's happening now? All this misinformation. I don't understand any of it. Now I can't get pregnant,
Mhm.
because of something I didn't even know I should have known. So it makes it a lot more complex in figuring all that out. And when you don't know where to go or how to navigate that, then you get paralyzed, right? It's just like, well, I guess it's just something I'll just figure out when it's time again. And I'm just here to say, with what April Christina's just shared with us, like, don't wait, right? You have
Mhm.
that inkling, talk to a specialist, talk to someone who can guide you to start identifying some of those things that you may not know you need to know.
Yeah. And if the first person you talk to
Mhm.
says, no, that's
Right.
not a thing,
Right.
or we're just going to try XYZ and then we'll circle back if it doesn't work, and that doesn't feel right to you, it's okay to get another opinion right away. And that's
Absolutely.
something I really teach our clients when they're getting into the fertility clinic space of, if you leave that appointment and you don't feel supported or heard or validated, they're just like, popping you on the conveyor belt and that's
Mhm.
it. And that doesn't feel good for you, because for some people that might feel enough, and that's okay. But if that doesn't feel appropriate for your journey, it's okay to not move forward and to keep looking. And I obviously say that with the asterisks of all of our friends who maybe live in a more rural
Mhm.
area that don't have a lot of options in terms of getting
Yes.
support. I have lots of clients who drive 4, 5, 6 hours to get to their doctor's appointment. So when I'm like, oh, is it time for a second opinion? We really do have to have an honest conversation of like, well, is that actually worth it? Because
Right.
the second opinion is now we're maybe talking a plane ride at that point. And that's a whole other ball game when we're
Right.
looking for the
Mhm.
right support. But I think when it comes to endo and wanting to get answers and wanting to work with the right surgeons, taking that second opinion and really looking for the people that do truly specialize in this area, especially if you're trying to conceive, is so important, because it's not just about pain management
Right.
when you're on your TTC journey and your family planning. It really does come more full circle than that like, yeah, we want to help you manage your pain, obviously, but we also want to get you pregnant. And so we need to be a little bit more cautious in surgery and be careful with the ovaries. And we also maybe need to do some immune support on your journey, and having someone in your corner that's going to take that seriously is so important.
Yeah, that's so true. Your well-being includes your reproductive health, right? I
Mhm.
mean,
Yeah.
and that's what we tell a lot of our clients. It is not just your ovaries, it's not just pain, it's not um, just trying to conceive. It's your overall well being that it affects every day from the time you put your feet on the floor in the morning to the time you close your eyes at night. There's something that's going on that with endometriosis that you're thinking about all the time. And April Christina speaks very well to that because she's living proof of that, right?
Mhm.
And she went down those paths of advocating for herself, but it took her a while, right? Many, 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 many years, and that's normal, sadly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. How do you guys find with the clients you're working with, endo impacts the mental health aspect of them in general, but also through their fertility journey as well?
Well, I'll just speak with some of the clients that we coach at Fertility Out Loud with, and in the clinics. It's this emotional burnout, right? Because they're
Mhm.
already coming to us burned out,
Right.
overwhelmed, sad, grieving, mad, not knowing where to go.
Mhm.
And that's a starting place. We have statistics that show like 39-40% of people who just start this journey are already dealing with anxiety, sadness, depression because of the years that they've dealt with it without it being known, right? And so I think it's not just giving the experts the diagnosis path, but the other support people, having them giving you that support piece that validates that yes, you are grieving, you are in crisis. Let's give you some tools and strategies to help get that navigated better, to help you feeling better, whether it be through talking about it, whether it be through strategies, whether it be through nutrition, whether it be through body movement, figuring out the things that will really empower you to move forward and start healing and continue healing so you're not keep swirling and swirling and get you out of that swirl.
Yeah. And April Christina, obviously you've alluded to your part of your journey. You've had surgeries.
Mhm.
How are you managing that mental health aspect with endo now?
For me, what was happening is that I didn't know that I was even experiencing anything emotionally. It was just something that I was just going through the notion, just making sure that everything was good, making sure that I was fine, until I realized that I was experiencing really high highs and really low lows. And for me, I had endometriosis, right? For other patients, it could be PCOS, it could be adeno, added on with endo. There's so many different complexities that's happening that mentally I had to get a therapist. I didn't know how to navigate that by myself. And when I started crashing more, and when mentally it was affecting me more than my pain, and after a while, pain, you become so numb to it that you learn how to just continue to move on and live life with it. But then also adding on having healthy relationships and understanding how to articulate what you're going through, even understanding how to wake up every morning to just go to work. Like there's so many different things that go on in your mind with just regular quality of life that I knew that I couldn't do that on my own. So I got a therapist. This is when I was diagnosed with endometriosis. Then you're gonna add an endometriosis and infertility. I was like, oh yeah, you have got to be kidding me. So I went, I
Therapy
went,
twice a week now.
I need more. I need more. And that honestly was when I said, okay, if they have a therapist for mentally what's going on, they have to have something for fertility. Again, my mind was just going in so many different places of just trying to find as much help as possible because I am a believer in alternative medicine. I did acupuncture for endometriosis and infertility. So in my mind, I said, okay, there has to be somebody for fertility. So I went on YouTube. I started looking up African American person that has a low AMH, that has endometriosis. I was going through everything and I ended up finding somebody. I contacted her on every platform she had just to see which one would stick for her to
Mhm.
respond back to me.
Mhm.
And she actually coached me through my first IVF cycle.
Amazing.
And I didn't even know what to expect, what to deal with. And I started really recognizing and understanding how therapeutic that really was to have a nurse that was there to be able to help and to be able to understand what I'm going through from an emotional aspect, because going through any type of alternative family planning definitely takes a toll on you way more than actually just going through the process than I think that people really understand, or that is actually really discussed and talked about, right? Then when I met Connie and Fertility Out Loud, it was just the icing on the cake, because the conversations that I have with Connie, it allows me to be transparent, and it's more than just going through your condition. It's life. And I think that people try to separate the two, and you really can't. It literally is a part of your life, and you have to understand what those thoughts are that you're going through just as a normal human being first, to really unpack how that's affecting your fertility journey as well.
Yeah, having that support is so important. And you guys have both already sort of alluded to that it's not just the support of one other person, but I'm a huge
Mhm.
advocate for building your care team around you.
Yes.
And that you want a team of experts, and we can't all be experts in all the things. So having someone who's an expert in various different pieces of what your body specifically needs is so important.
Mhm.
And I think a lot of times, and maybe this will call some of our amazing listeners out a little bit, but we forget about that mental health aspect of our team. We're like, okay, we've got the fertility doctor, we've got the functional med doctor, the ND, we've got an acupuncturist, I go to massage, I do all these things, but we're still kind
Mhm.
of ignoring the, box of grief that we're
Yes.
carrying around for however long, like even probably before your
Yes.
fertility journey actually started. And so I encourage you guys to hear that and figure out what does that mean for you in terms of getting some little bit of extra support. And sometimes it's just even not necessarily dipping your toe into therapy right away, which I think everyone should
Yeah.
personally,
Mhm. Yeah.
but finding a community. And that was a big piece for me when I brought my practice online and I brought Fertility Confidence Method to life. It was from seeing my clients in my clinic cross paths in the hallway and going, oh, like if only I could just put you two in a room because you're going through
Right.
the same damn thing. You both
Mhm.
feel alone. Like, and neither of you have anybody, but I can't, out of privacy laws and all of the things, just
Right.
shove you
Mhm.
two in a closet and say,
Right.
you will be friends.
Yes. Yes.
Not letting you out until everyone's unpacked their stuff and you've worked through it a little bit. Whereas when I came into the online space with FCM, a big thing for me was how do I build community into my
Mhm.
medicine? Because it's so, so important to not feel alone on
Yeah.
this journey.
I'm going to bring you in on a session between Connie and I recently, because, and I think that it's important to really understand that it's not just a conversation that we have with her being my fertility coach. It's something that impacts my life, and it allows me to be able to articulate mentally and process different things when I'm not talking to her, when I'm not texting her. I was talking to Connie recently. My birthday just passed, and I was just telling her like just different things that I was experiencing as a woman, right? Because I'm still trying on this journey to conceive, to be a mom. And I was like, but Connie, but I'm thinking about this, but then Connie, but then I'm thinking about that. And one thing that has resonated with me from our conversation last month, Connie was like, it can be this and that.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
And that freed me up so much, because I, by nature, am an overthinker. Endometriosis have made me an overthinker, if I could be honest, because I'm like, I have to plan out everything A through Z. And then if A through Z doesn't work, I got to go back from Z to A, just to prepare my mind to be able to understand what's happening and what's taking place. And Connie was like, both can be true
Yeah.
and it's okay. And I didn't even look at it like that, because when you're dealing with these conditions and the complexity of it, it's so much stuff and so many different nuances. Like,
Yes.
okay, once you do this, then you have to do that. And then once you reach that, then we're going to do this. And I'm like, whoa, like my mind is just constantly moving. And Connie is like, take a minute. It can be this and that. And that has been my motto on how I'm moving forward mentally and emotionally now, because I'm like, okay, April, yes, you can feel this and you can feel that as well. And it allows me also to be able to have not only the conversations within myself, but to be able to articulate that with the rest of my team. More importantly, to be able to articulate that with the people that I love. Like, there's okay and there is power in a pause. And that's something that I have been definitely learning. So I just wanted to share that because it was something that you had said, Kelsey, that like really stood out to me. And I'm like, no, you're absolutely right. Because Connie just taught me that it can be this and that.
I love that you teach that, Connie, because that's
Yeah.
something we talk a lot about with our clients is the holding the duality
Yes.
of two
Mhm.
very different
Yes.
emotions or very
Yes.
different feelings, and how that's okay. And also, that's not something you're only going to experience in your fertility journey. Like,
Yes.
this is a life skill that we
Yeah.
all, especially us high achievers, overthinkers, type A women, we're not
Yeah.
good
Right.
with holding both things. We'll get stuck on the one, and really being able to bring in, like, we're allowed to be angry and pissed off
Yes.
and still be grateful
Right.
for what laundry
Right.
list of other things we're grateful for. So I love that you bring that into your coaching, Connie.
Yeah. And it's really important is that emotional health, emotional well being isn't an option. It's essential, right?
Right.
It's
Yeah.
essential. So when we, even with fertility coaching, so many people ask me, so like, how do I know I should go talk to a fertility coach? It's like, if you're thinking about it now, then this is the time, right? When you seek support, community support, specialized support to be part of your team, it's not weakness. It's not
Yeah.
that you can't handle it, right? It's because you want to empower yourself. Because you know what? Everyone's got their zone of genius. So why don't we put all these people with their zone of geniuses together in a community, and you can get your specific science knowledge, your specific whatever knowledge that you have or that you seek, and bring it all together so you don't have to second guess yourself, so you don't have to spend so much time figuring it out and then doubting yourself, right?
Yeah.
Because then it leaves no space for you to grow who you are, to be your best self. Because I truly do believe, and I can see it in April Christina, she can be her best self and she is her best self, but she is still dealing with different aspects of endometriosis. She is
Right.
still pursuing the path to parenthood, but she is living her best self right where she's at. And it doesn't always have to be filled with just paralyzing moments when
Yeah.
you wake up and before you go to bed and everything in between, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I
Mhm.
love that. I think that's such a good message for, regardless if you have endo or not, for anyone on their fertility journey. I love that idea of being proactive. You don't need to
Mm-hmm.
wait until you feel like you have zero options to reach out and get support. This, honestly, the sooner the better,
Yeah.
realistically, that it's not a
Yeah.
sign of weakness, and that you can I always kind of make this claim with my clients of like, you can never have too many cooks in the kitchen, but you have to be ready to have too many
Yes.
cooks in the kitchen.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
we want to build our team, but we also need to be able to put our team in their zones
Yes.
and allow yourself to be able to kind of sift through. Even with my stuff, I'm like, I'm going to give you a lot of things. It might feel overwhelming. That's okay. Take what
Mm-hmm.
your body, your brain needs right
Yes.
now in this moment, and we'll just come back to the rest later. It
Mm-hmm.
can be a very slow and steady approach, even if that makes your blood boil just thinking about, well, I want to do it all right this second.
Yeah.
And I think helping women to slow down and like what April Christina was discussing, work on the nervous system aspect of trying to get maybe not fully out of fight or flight in this
Mhm.
moment, but at least being able to hold it and manage it a little bit
Mhm.
better. And giving yourself that space and that pause to decide, where do I go from here? And I think one of the best ways to make that decision is to just sit in what you're
Yes.
in right now and let
Mhm.
let your gut essentially say, like, I think
Yeah.
I'm missing X. Now we take action and we go find it.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and we keep going back to the same word, like trust yourself, trust your gut.
Mhm.
So you can have, your team of people and you think, well, Kelsey gave me 10 things and Connie gave me 10 things and I'm going to do all 20 things now, right? Because
Mhm.
then I'm going to be good. Then I'll get pregnant. Then,
Right.
and that's not true because then you're trying to manage all these things that don't align with you, right? So we worked with a client a couple months ago, and she said that like yoga for fertility, right? And she's like, I'm doing yoga and I'm so stressed every, 3 times a week I'm going. It stresses me out. It's like, okay, back the bus up a little bit here, right? So you're stressed going to yoga. Well, everyone said, well, if I did it, then I'd probably get pregnant. Well, you know what? How about if you don't do it and
Right.
find something that you can move your body differently that
Mhm.
feels good, that feels right, that you can alleviate all these other things going on.
Mhm.
And she did. And she felt so much better
Yeah.
that she didn't have to keep
Mhm.
up with all the trends to be perfect. It's
Right.
not about being perfect. It's
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
not about being perfect,
Yeah.
and I think that's really important, especially us as women. You don't have to do it all.
Yeah. Our
Mhm.
2025 motto here is, you don't have to be pregnant, or you don't have to be perfect to get pregnant.
Yes,
That's as
exactly.
much as we're like, we're building out plans and we're giving you
Mhm.
all the things and the strategies and we're helping you advocate, that I always want all of our advice to kind of come back to this lens of, but take what you need in
Yes.
this moment. You don't have to do it all and you don't have to be perfect. And helping
Yeah.
women unlearn this concept that they're ultimately getting from all of the social media
Yes.
and books and things that they're reading, where they're like, okay, if I,
Mhm.
like exactly like you're describing, Connie, if I do every single thing
Yes.
that I read about on here, it worked for that person, so it's going to work for me, but then it doesn't. So then they add in everything that this person said
Yes.
on top of it. And we're falling out of the realm of personalized care in that
Yes.
instance.
Yeah.
And that is when you will start to see cracks in your foundation from overdoing it. And we have to pull back and think, what is right for me and my body? What do my fertility indicators tell me I need? And there's such a thing as doing too much, and we have
Yes.
to meet clients where they're
Mhm.
at. And I still struggle with this sometimes with clients who are like, okay, I got this, I did it, now give me more. And I'm like,
Right.
not yet.
Mhm.
Let's just hang out here for a couple minutes, see what happens, and then we'll talk
Mhm.
about it in like another cycle or two. And in the meantime, I want you to really work on the mindset
Yes.
piece of things, because the physical stuff, like, we got to give it time. And that
Mhm.
endo, not endo, fertility, what have you, that idea of like, ultimately when we're talking about hormones and inflammation, and advocacy for diagnosis, we are also talking about this horrible concept of waiting. And
Yes.
no one likes to be told that we have to wait longer, but there are instances through this journey where we do have to be comfortable just sitting and trusting what we're
Yeah.
doing is working behind the scenes, even if we can't feel
Yes.
change. And I
Right.
find that with my endo clients especially is always a bit of a tricky one, because they will, have that monthly reminder if their pain is still there of like, okay, well, nothing's probably working. It's like, well, that's not true, but we also don't know, right? Like, we're
Yeah.
making educated guesses in this arena, unfortunately, and we're going to do our best with the information that we have while we wait for you to have surgery or suppression or whatever it is that their journey is bringing them on.
Right. And so true. So endometriosis is chronic, right? So, you don't go in, I have endometriosis and there's a quick fix, right? This is something that's chronic that, you will be managing for a long period of time throughout transitions of different types of phases of your life and decisions that you make. And I think it's that knowledge of is gives you that power. If you know that, so this year, you might be managing your endometriosis or your fertility journey one way, and 6 months later, based on the knowledge and feeling better about maybe your body movement or the nutrition changes you made, may not change your endometriosis, but it will change how you're coping, change how you're feeling and managing it. And I just think that overall, that's what's key in managing a diagnosis like endometriosis, that it's just not linear, right? It's just different almost daily, right? And April Christina speaks to that so real because she's still dealing with it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. This was such an enlightening conversation, I think, for women who are in this space of either thinking they might have endo or hearing this idea of, well, okay, well, my periods are painful and now you're telling me that's not normal. And hopefully just opening up a door for them to start to figure out where to go from here. So at the end of all of my episodes, I always love to ask people what's one piece of fertility advice that you'd love to leave for listeners. So April Christina, just based on your journey with endo specifically, what are some things that you'd love women who are similar to your story? What would you love to tell them?
This is something that I talk about all the time that I'm still learning. Your pace, your race. And it's easy to go on social media, like you were saying, Kelsey, and just really see, different outlooks and, different results based on people that would, fit the criteria of what you're experiencing and what you're going through. That's amazing information, but unfortunately, sometimes your result may not be their result and vice versa. And really just understanding the process and the journey that you're on allows you to be able to stay present in the moment for when that happens. After my first IVF cycle, I took time off. And at first, I was upset within myself because I knew mentally and physically I wasn't ready to embark on another cycle right after. But then when I started understanding myself more, I realized that that was such an influential part of the journey and it made me stronger. So I started painting. I joined martial arts. Like I started doing things that I actually enjoyed and that I loved because it was a part of my race. Unfortunately, and I'm just going to speak for myself. You get so focused on baby, 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 being a mom, being a mom, being a mom, that sometimes you lose focus of yourself. And by the time you get to that part, you may not even recognize who you are anymore because you're just so exhausted that you wasn't able to be present for yourself. So I always live by your pace, your race. Continue to be present for you. Listen to your mind, listen to your body, and more importantly, trust your gut and listen to your heart. And that will be able, I feel personally, to help you along the journey and the process to planning and to becoming a mom and for experiencing a more fruitful journey, right? Pun intended, but a more fruitful journey because again, we get so lost in our thoughts and we get so lost in our mind that we actually still want to enjoy the process, even though conventionally it doesn't look like what the world and what society says that it should be for people that are trying to conceive. So your pace, your race.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's great advice. And it goes really hand in hand with the idea of not comparing yourself to
Hmm.
others, right? We
Yeah,
take things from other people and ask questions of how does this fit in, but really trying to break away from that comparison syndrome that I see so often
absolutely.
in
Yes.
the fertility journey. That's amazing.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
Connie, how can listeners find out more about Fertility Out Loud?
So fertilityoutloud.com, and we provide a text-based no cost service for aspiring parents.
Amazing.
So you're texting a live person, right? We're all fertility nurses, experienced, but we transition that knowledge and transition into an overall well-being focus. So we let the nurses in the clinics do what they do, let the doctors, let Kelsey, let everybody do what they do. And at fertilityoutloud.com, you'll find fertility coaches who meet you right where you're at. Get it? You don't have to explain it. And we provide the strategies, whether it be for your physical well-being, your emotional well-being, financial well-being, social well-being, and really just I think what April Christina spoke to it. You're not your diagnosis, right?
Yeah.
We don't look at you as your diagnosis. You're so much more than that for your story. And it doesn't have to write your story or even be the ending of your story, right? I think that your identity, our clients feel like, don't come in and feel like you're infertility, you're endometriosis. You're not. It is a symptom, it is a sign. We may not be able to change that diagnosis, but we can certainly live and enhance who you are, just as April Christina is doing, right? Her diagnosis hasn't changed, but she's learning so much more about herself that she is more than that diagnosis. And I think that that is really key in moving forward and getting that knowledge to move forward, to advocate for yourself. And the unknown doesn't have to be scary, right? When you have some clarity and the information to move forward, that there is support. You don't need to do it alone. So the fertility coaches, myself and my team of coaches at fertilityoutloud.com, you can, start texting a coach right now, right?
Mhm.
Right where you're at. And it doesn't have to be every day, all the time, whenever it works for you, when you need that little bit more to
Yeah.
complete the picture.
I love that. What an amazing support tool. I think it's so needed in our
Yeah.
community. So thank you for being a
Yes.
part of such a wonderful
Yes.
cause.
It's
This was
amazing.
a lovely
It was.
combo. Thank you, ladies, for hanging out with me today. And we will see you guys in the next episode.
Kelsey, thank you. And thank you for what you do.
Well,
Amazing.
thank you. Thank
Yes.
you.
Yes,
Yes, it really matters. April Christina, great to see you.
as always.